Hello, and welcome to another look with Christian King. Today I'm here to do my UFC 228 recap show. These fights were awesome. It is late Sunday morning / early Sunday afternoon, sipping on a little bit of cold brew, and here to talk about the fights we all just saw. So, I got the easy picks right, missed some of the hard ones. Not my best night here, but we all know fight picking is very hit or miss. So we're going to dive right into this. All right, so here we go. Tyron Woodley, incredibly impressed with his performance. He defeated Darren Till at 4 minutes, 19 seconds of round 2 via submission Darce choke. An incredibly impressive performance from Tyron Woodley, who received not only his UFC belt for defending it, but also his black belt from Dean Thomas, I believe. So very impressive from Tyron Woodley. Thought he looked excellent, and this was I picked Till by 4th round, and I'll explain what Tyron Woodley did that I did not think he would do, which I'm very happy about. I'm happy Tyron Woodley won this fight, because it seems to me that Darren Till is going to be moving up to middleweight. So if he had won, he would most likely be vacating this title almost immediately, which would be incredibly frustrating, because that would essentially just ruin the lineage of the welterweight title, which has already been messed up by GSP vacating it. So I don't like when people vacate titles, so I'm kind of glad Tyron Woodley won, even though I picked Darren Till. So I picked Darren Till because I didn't trust Tyron Woodley's ability to fight against type. And here's what this showed me. It showed me that Tyron Woodley, so there has been this huge debate amongst people who analyze fights. Has Tyron Woodley been backing up against the fence and hanging out there and being extremely non-aggressive in his past 3 fights? Has he been doing that by choice entirely? Or is it more that he just gets sucked into that and can't help himself? And this fight showed me that that is more of a choice than we thought, and that he doesn't have to do that to be comfortable. And that is very good, because that would not have done him well. He did that a little bit in this fight, but not nearly to the extent he did it against Stephen Thompson. And I think that could have proved very costly if he had just sat along the fence and let Darren Till throw at him. At one point, he did chill along the fence for a second, and he got hit pretty hard with a left hand by Darren Till. He was a lot more aggressive in this fight. He initiated clinches, he looked for takedowns, and he eventually ended up hurting Darren Till. And I liked what DC had to say. Other fighters other than Conor McGregor need to stop throwing a lead uppercut followed by a straight punch. Darren Till is a southpaw just like Conor McGregor, and he tried to do the exact same thing Conor did, which is that he threw his right uppercut, which is his lead hand, and then his straight left hand, which is his power hand behind it, and he got countered viciously by Tyron Woodley and dropped. And then from there, Tyron Woodley smothered him on the ground, landed big elbows, stayed very patient, showed real veteran savvy, and was able to eventually lock up the Darce choke. It seemed to me that Darren Till was not aware of the submission threat that Tyron Woodley presented, and did not show him the respect that he should have as Tyron Woodley started to secure that Darce. I think if Darren Till had been fighting, say, Damian Maia, he would have been much more aware of that, but I don't think he gave Tyron enough credit for his submission skills. Tyron Woodley is now a black belt, but for a few years now, he has been, in my opinion, a very good brown belt, especially for MMA standards. So Darren Till should have been much more aware of that. But he's young. He'll be back probably at middleweight. I am a little bit concerned. He's big, but he's not really big for middleweight. So I hope that I hope he can find a way to, his big advantage seems to always be how big he is. Well, he's not going to have that advantage at middleweight. So he's going to have to kind of figure out his game, maybe develop it a little more, add a few more wrinkles. He looked fine. He was definitely Tyron Woodley definitely got him to freeze up a little bit. They stared at each other a little bit. Not too surprised by that. I think Till just got caught. Till wanted to let Tyron, his plan would have coincided with my pick. Tyron Woodley spoiled my pick by showing us that the inactivity is more by choice than maybe we thought, and therefore being more aggressive and taking the fight to Till. Good for Tyron Woodley. If Woodley had hung back more, or if Till had not gotten caught, my pick might have come to fruition, because it did appear that Darren Till, and him talking after the fight, that one of his main focuses was to let Woodley burn himself out a little bit and then get in there in the later rounds and start really applying the pressure. So, sorry, I just need a little coffee there. Yeah, that was a great fight. Good for Tyron Woodley. We'll move on pretty quickly. This fight wasn't that long, and not that much happened until the final sequence. Good for Tyron Woodley. Very happy for him. Who's he going to fight next? He might fight Colby Covington. This really renewed a lot of my faith in Tyron Woodley, to be honest. I'm not sure who I would have picked. I probably would pick Tyron Woodley over Colby Covington regardless, but there was a part of me that was a little worried about Covington's pressure. After watching this, I'm pretty much positive that Tyron Woodley will knock Colby Covington out. Tyron hits so hard. The thing about Tyron is that in the past, the people that he's hurt, Josh Koscheck, after he had already been hurt a bunch of times in his other fights. And then, the Robbie Lawler, he knocked Robbie Lawler out after Robbie Lawler had a bunch of crazy wars where he'd taken a lot of big shots and not taken a ton of time off between them. So I think, to me, hurting Darren Till on the feet shows us that Tyron Woodley has very, very high level power. I knew he had power, but hurting people that are that are likely and often get hurt in their fights is a lot different than being the first person to drop Darren Till and really rocking him. So great by Tyron Woodley. The Colby Covington fight, I guess they should make that. To be honest, though, just with the political climate in America, I'm not really looking forward to Colby Covington saying a bunch of, things that, even if he's just I just feel like he's going to end up saying some stuff that's really going to rub people the wrong way, and I just feel like it's going to be a whole bunch of political crap. I kind of want to see Tyron Woodley fight Kamaru Usman, to be honest, because I think that'll be a more competitive fight, and I think that that'll also be more of a respectful build-up. But the UFC will do what the UFC wants to do. Tyron Woodley did say he's willing to make a quick turnaround and fight November 3rd, I believe it is, at Madison Square Garden. That'd be cool. We'll see what happens. Moving on to the co-main event. Jessica Andrade. I picked her to win a very, very dominant unanimous decision, and she did better than that. She KO'd Karolina Kowalkiewicz, KK, with one punch at 158 of the first round. This was very impressive by Jessica Andrade. We do not see, so keep in mind, this is straw weight, which is the lowest weight women's division in the UFC, and that was a one-punch knockout. I don't remember any one-punch knockouts in any of the women's divisions ever since they've started. I can't remember any. Feel free to correct me in the comments. There may have been one. I don't really remember very many knockouts at all. Most of them are TKOs, and then we've seen two big head kicks by Holly Holm over Bethe Correia and, of course, Ronda Rousey. But this was very impressive. Andrade is a tank. I thought that KK would be tough enough to hang in there and get dominated for 3 rounds, but Jessica came out there wanting the knockout, looking for the knockout, and she got it, along with a $50,000 performance of the night bonus, which I also believe Tyron Woodley got. In fact, while we're on here, let's see real quick who did get the bonuses. That'll only take us a second to look up. Let's see. All right, going through headlines. Tyron Woodley, Jessica Andrade, and Aldana and Pudilova, which is a fight I actually missed. I missed that fight, but they won fight of the night. I'll have to go back and watch that. That was one of the ones I didn't pick. So, Jessica Andrade, very impressive. She needs to fight Rose next. Anything else would be ridiculous. Tatiana Suarez, who we'll get to, she looked good earlier in the night, but Jessica Andrade needs to fight Rose Namajunas next, and my early prediction for that fight is that Jessica Andrade will knock Rose Namajunas out and become the new champion, and maybe that's a little bit of recency bias, so we'll explore that a little bit more later on. Let's move on to the next fight. So, Zabit Magomedsharipov defeated Brandon Davis by second round submission, knee bar, at 3 minutes and 46 seconds. I picked Zabit to win this fight in the third round by submission, so I was close. Right method, right person, just wrong round by a couple minutes. Brandon Davis was definitely showed up to fight, but as soon as Zabit decided to grapple, that was it. And that was my fear, and I wish I had talked a little bit more about this on my preview show. The only issue with doing my preview show on Sundays as opposed to later in the week like most people do is that I think about the fights as the week goes on and I come up with new ideas, but I've already done my show. So I had this thought later on in the week where it occurred to me. The big difference between Brandon Davis and Kyle Bochniak is that Kyle Bochniak has takedown defense and Brandon Davis does not have takedown defense. Brandon Davis has bad takedown defense, in my opinion. He was able to, he looked like he clearly worked on it because he did well with it in the first round, but he has very single layer takedown defense. And Zabit was able to chain wrestle right through that, get Brandon Davis down, get his back, and secure the second backpack knee bar of the night. Very impressive by Zabit. He called out Chad Mendes. I think that would be a very interesting fight because Chad Mendes has big power. He does very well striking against tall opponents, and he is not going to be easy to take down or submit. So I really want to see that fight. Let's do it. Zabit versus Chad Mendes. I want to see it. Let's do that next. Nice win by Zabit. Okay, before that, Jimmy Rivera versus John Dodson. This was one of the only bad fights of the night. I predicted Jimmy Rivera would win a unanimous decision, and Jimmy Rivera won a unanimous decision, exactly as I predicted. 30-27 times 2, 29-28 times 1. I agreed with 30-27. It was a bad fight. Dodson's defensive wrestling is incredible. So that was fun to watch. I love seeing him use his crazy athletic takedown defense. But John Dodson, he talked all this game before this fight, and I'm not trying to put the guy down, but he talked about how he's got the fire back and he's going to take it to this guy, and he sat back and did nothing like he always does. Very frustrating to see. He knows he was losing that fight, and he chose to do nothing for the whole last part of the fight. He didn't try and get the knockout. He didn't try and get the comeback. He was just content to lose the decision and not get hurt too bad. I think Dodson, as I said in my preview show and why I picked Rivera, I think Dodson's best days are definitely behind him. I do not think he has that fire or aggression that he used to have, and that's a big problem for fighters. Okay, before that, Nico Price took on ARA. Abdul Razak Al Hassan. It's the only time I'm going to say his name. So Nico Price took on ARA. I picked Price by KO TKO in the second round, and I said that it's really hard to pick a fight like this. These guys are going to throw. I just trusted that Nico Price might have a little more power and a little bit better of a chin. And you know what? He might, but he was the one who got caught. He lost by KO in just 43 seconds. It was a really fun fight to open the pay-per-view. Both guys decided to throw any caution out the window, and the reason why I said it would be a hard fight to pick is you saw as ARA was teeing off on Nico Price along the fence line, he was using no defense. I mean, he was wide open for a counter. If Nico had just been able to get a counter in there before he got put out, he could have knocked out ARA. I mean, these guys were not using any defense. They were just slinging hands. So really hard fight to pick. I picked Nico. I was wrong. Big deal. It was a fun knockout to see. I agree with this not being one of the performance winners. This was just kind of a sloppy brawl that only lasted 43 seconds. I don't like when those guys win bonuses. I do think Tatiana Suarez deserved a bonus, though. Maybe they should have added a fifth one just for her, and then maybe a sixth one just for Aljamain Sterling. But we'll get to those two fights next. But first, a quick little rant by me. If you are going to promote Conor McGregor versus Khabib Nurmagomedov using the footage of the dolly being thrown through the bus where Conor McGregor was arrested and charged with, I believe, 3 felonies before they reached a plea deal, and he just got like community service and stuff, and he doesn't have any felonies on his record. They cleared it up, but he committed an assault on a group of people, damaged property, and then fled the scene. If you want to use that in the promos, that's fine if you do it as they did in the promo they showed earlier in the night, where you show it as the news report showed it, and it's the news people talking, Conor McGregor being taken into custody. But then later on, they do a little 30-second promo. and it's Khabib, this and this. And then I am not making this up. Go back and watch it. A dolly comes at the TV screen like a 3D movie where something jumps out at you when you're wearing the 3D glasses. The dolly hits the screen and it's like a smashing glass sound effect, and then it says Conor McGregor and it shows his highlights. Are you kidding me? It's fine if you want to put it in the promo in the way I talked about a second ago, as the news report showing what happened, what's the story. You don't need to add the dolly smashing the TV screen as a special effect to then introduce Conor McGregor's name to the 30-second video advertising the fight. That is crazy. I mean, I don't really even have words for this. I was watching with my wife. We just looked at each other and just started laughing the second that happened, because she was thinking the exact same thing as me. Like, wow, you've got to be kidding me. That's how you're going to use that? Like, no, what are you doing? That's such a bad idea. And you've got Rose Namajunas, who's one of your champions. And to be honest, we'll get into that another day. I think that maybe there's a little bit of communication issue about how traumatized she really. Surely she's not as traumatized as Trevor Whitman was saying. That seems a little crazy for anyone, honestly. I mean, Rose has probably lived in much worse areas than I've ever lived, but I don't think I'd be traumatized for months and months by someone throwing a dolly at a window. I mean, I got me and my friend got mugged one time at gunpoint, and it was scary, but I was over it by within 24 hours. I was not scared anymore. I can't imagine months later I'm scared to go out in the same parking lot where I got mugged. That's just not really. I feel like people are kind of meant to adapt and move on from scary things. I think it's more things that are traumatic, where someone you love died. I think those are more the type of things where you can't get over it. Coming back from war, where you literally watched people die. I think that's a lot different. But no one died. The worst injury was a cut to Michael Chiesa's forehead. He's fine. We've all seen him since then. We know he's fine. So we know no one was permanently hurt. So I think I have trouble believing that Rose is quite that traumatized. But still, she's talking about how she's still upset about it. Her coach is talking about how she's still upset about it. And then they're using it as a special effect to introduce Conor McGregor's name to the commercial. Very, very poor taste in my opinion. But that's okay. We'll move on. Let's talk about the fights, because what's way more important than some silly commercial is this woman that I'm about to talk about. Tatiana Suarez dominated Carla Esparza en route to a third round TKO via strikes, I believe from the mount, or at least some type of three-quarter mount. Tatiana Suarez is an absolute beast. I was raving about her this entire fight. I just kept looking over at my wife and just saying, wow, do you see that? Wow, this is incredible. She's not giving Carla any room to breathe. I was so impressed with Suarez. I picked her to win a dominant unanimous decision, and she did even better than that. She put the finish on Carla, and I wasn't sure if she'd be able to, because she's not super experienced. She doesn't always get finishes, and Carla's very tough, and Carla was game. She was hanging in there. She was not giving up. Suarez, right from the jump, took her down. Anytime that Carla would try and plant her feet and get off any offense, Suarez was in on the takedown. Big, high-amplitude takedowns, keeping control, controlling the wrist, all the little techniques that you see Khabib use. She was lacing the legs a little bit, and she just was relentless. Vicious ground and pound, landing huge elbows. Carla Esparza's face was swollen up within the first 90 seconds of the fight, and Carla tried to hang in there. She got up to her feet a couple times, and when they were on the feet, she was throwing. She was in there to fight. Carla's so damn tough. I have so much respect for that woman. I'm going to be honest. I didn't take Carla Esparza seriously for a while. First off, I have to say I'm a huge Angela Hill fan. And Angela Hill lost to her on the actually, I know Angela. I'm not gonna make a big deal about it. I know Angela Hill. She lived in Asheville for a little bit when she first decided to start doing MMA. I was at the same gym as her for a little while. She's definitely a very nice person. I know her and her husband. They're both very nice people, very cool people. Angie is a very unique person, very artistic, really funny sense of humor. She's just a super awesome person. So I was pretty bitter when she got submitted by Carla Esparza in the first round on the Ultimate Fighter because I was waiting all summer or whatever it was for that. I remember the Ultimate Fighter people coming out to the gym to do some video of Angie. I was so excited about that season. I couldn't wait to see how my friend did, and then she lost in the first fight on the show. So of course that kind of made me a Carla Esparza hater. And then also too, Carla, she just seems, she looks so like calm and almost scared before her fights start, but I guess that's just how she is. But she's very girly, she doesn't come across as being as gritty as like say a Kat Zingano who gives you chills when she talks. I mean different weight classes, but still both women. Carla Esparza just seems so much kind of like I don't want to, this sounds rude, but she kind of seems like a little bit like a Valley girl. And she actually, I think she might be a Valley girl. I actually think she might be. I could be wrong, but I think she's from that area. I'm pretty sure Jessica Pene's from that area too, who happens to be like best friends with Angela Hill. They have a podcast together. It's called Two Straws. You should check it out. She seems very much like the girl that would be very popular and pretty in high school. She doesn't seem like a fighter. She doesn't really seem like someone who's had a tough life. So it's kind of easy to not take her as seriously as someone, like a Rose Namajunas who grew up in the streets of Milwaukee. Carla seems like she's had a pretty great life. After she won the belt, she went and got some like $1,000 ice cream sundae with gold flakes, like very very upper class type of person to me, in my opinion, compared to a lot of the fighters that you can tell come from poverty. But she is so tough and she has no quit in her. And that's very impressive to me because, to be honest, if you can find that fighting spirit when you haven't had a tough upbringing, that in a way that's more impressive than having a fighting spirit when you did have a tough upbringing. Because if you're someone like who grew up, Jose Aldo, who grew up in the favelas of Brazil and slept on the mats of the gym for years of his life with nowhere else to go, of course that dude's going to be tough and not give up. I mean, are you kidding? He had to be tough just to survive through his life. But Carla Esparza probably didn't have to be tough to survive her childhood, and she's very tough. So props to Carla. I can't wait to see. She's looked great in her past two. Not great in this fight. She looked great against Claudia Gadelha, and I thought she won that fight. And she looked very tough and resilient in this fight. So I can't wait to see what's next for Carla. But Tatiana, let's talk about what's next for her very quick. So Jessica Andrade deserves the next title shot. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Beating Carla Esparza is not the same thing as one-punch KOing Karolina Kowalkiewicz after dominating Tisha Torres, after dominating Claudia Gadelha. So that's not the same thing at all. Jessica Andrade deserves the title shot. Here's what Tatiana Suarez deserves. Okay, are y'all ready for this? Here's what needs to happen. Well, first off, they could make Tatiana Suarez versus Jessica Andrade, but I don't think that would be fair to Jessica Andrade. Here's what needs to happen. Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She's got an attitude saying, I'm still the queen, everyone bow down to me. I'm not going to say that Rose is the better fighter. I'm the better fighter, even though she beat me twice. You know what? If Joanna Jędrzejczyk wants to hang around at 115 instead of moving up to 125 like everybody wants her to, if she wants to keep fighting at 115 pounds and she wants to keep saying how she's better than the person who's beat her twice and she wants to keep saying how she's not going anywhere, then prove it. That's what I'm going to say. Prove it, Joanna. You are at the top. Here's someone who we've never seen you fight someone like Tatiana Suarez. We have never seen you fight someone who would have, in my opinion, definitely won an Olympic gold medal had she not been diagnosed with thyroid cancer. Tatiana Suarez won the Worlds in wrestling. She's an incredible wrestler. In my opinion, she was on track to become an Olympic gold medalist before being diagnosed with thyroid cancer. She also had 17 months of absolutely no training when she completely destroyed one of her shoulders. I don't remember which shoulder, but she just tore every ligament and muscle in there, just ruined it, was out for 17 months, and she still looks like this. So we have never seen Joanna Jędrzejczyk have to fight a dominant wrestler like this. Like, you did that. Joanna defends takedowns well. It's kind of like Conor versus Khabib, honestly. It's kind of that same thing. Conor is able to defend Eddie Alvarez's takedowns and piece him up, just like Joanna has been able to defend, Claudia Gadelha's takedowns and piece her up. But can Joanna, just like we're wondering if Conor McGregor can defend Khabib's takedowns, Can Joanna Jędrzejczyk defend Suarez's takedowns? I don't know about that. But can Suarez get in without getting pieced up too much? Joanna doesn't have big one-punch power, so who knows? I got to see that fight. So that's what I'm calling for. I want to see Tatiana Suarez fight Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and I want to see Jessica Andrade fight Rose Namajunas for the belt. And I want to see both of those fights put on the end of the year card with Amanda Nunes and Chris Cyborg. Let's have three. Y'all ready for this? Let's have three women's fights headlining the New Year's Eve. It probably won't be on exactly New Year's Eve, but they call it the New Year's Eve show. The last pay-per-view of the year. Let's have three women's fights at the top. I'm not kidding, y'all. That would be so great. Let's have Amanda Nunes, Chris Cyborg versus Amanda Nunes, main event. Co-main event, Rose Namajunas versus Jessica Andrade. And then third from the top, let's have Tatiana Suarez versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Let's go all in on these ladies and have a killer show. That would be one of my most anticipated pay-per-views if they did that. And I'm not pandering at all. I was saying last night, men's 155 is my favorite division. After that, it might be men's 135, but I actually think it's women's 115. I'm pretty sure for me it goes men's 155, women's 115, and then men's 135, and then either men's featherweight or welterweight. But women's strawweight is such a good division. I want to see that as our top three fights on the end of the year pay-per-view. UFC, make it happen. All right. Before that, Aljamain Sterling submitted Cody Stamann via knee bar that completely blew his knee out. Very, very tough to watch. My wife was cringing. She is a big time, or grew up and still plays a little bit, but she's a soccer player, so she knows about knee injuries, and she definitely was cringing when she saw that one, and I was too, but I didn't quite realize what had happened right away. I think she realized before I did how bad Cody Stamann's knee was hurt. Oh man, gave me some goosebumps. So yeah, that was not good to see. I picked Stamann to win a split decision, and honestly, that would have happened if he hadn't gotten submitted. I mean, maybe not. He might not have won, but I think they were en route to a split decision fight. That first round was kind of a toss-up. Stamann looked good, but Aljo definitely is improving still. Good for Aljo for getting the submission. He probably is the more interesting contender when you get to the fights up at the top, just because I think that Cody Stamann is he kind of just blends right in with like those Uriah Faber, type team alpha male guys that kind of just wrestle boxers. I feel like he wouldn't really give like a Dominic Cruz or a Marlon Moraes too much trouble. I don't really think Cody Stamann would give TJ Dillashaw any trouble. I think Aljo is at least something different. He's built a lot different. He's more long and lanky. So I think there's some good parity there. Good for Aljo. Good win. I don't like all his silly dancing he does. I just think he makes himself look kind of dumb. Like, I don't know. The dude's knees blown out. I think he should have chilled out and been a little more respectful. I loved how Tyron Woodley did not celebrate a lot after his win, and I loved what he said about that. Tyron Woodley said, "I'm supposed to win." I was crying when I got handed my black belt. That's the part that was the surprise. Me winning this belt, I planned on winning. I came here to win, and I like that attitude. I felt like Aljamain Sterling doing like a bunch of silly, and to be honest, like Aljamain Sterling, it's not like he's a good dancer. I mean, when Valentina Shevchenko does her dancing celebrations, she's doing she was on like some dance team in Kyrgyzstan or however you say it, Kyrgyzstan. I think it's Kyrgyzstan. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I don't know how to say all those countries' names. There's so many of them, but I think it's Kyrgyzstan. But she was on like some dance team or something. And she's doing like some cool traditional dance, and she does it really well. Aljamain Sterling's kind of just doing like something awkward I would do if I was at a party trying to dance. So kind of dances like me, and I don't know how to dance at all. So I think that the fact that he's doing that while his opponent is laying there with like his career possibly, I'm being a little dramatic, but who knows how hurt Cody Stamann's knee is. I mean, he could be out for the next 18 months. So I think that dancing is just a little bit rude. I'm sorry. I do. I think it's a little bit rude when your opponent's laying there with his knee blown out. His knee's blown out. He said in the interview, he's like, yeah, I heard his knee pop. Okay, dude. Well, then maybe don't dance 2 feet away from him while he's writhing in agony with a blown out knee. I just, Aljamain Sterling, I was very impressed. But to be honest, if he had shown a little bit more, I've been here before. I'm going to be cool. I'm not going to be overly celebratory. I feel like he kind of would have earned earned me as a little more of a fan, because that was a cool submission, and then it put a bad taste in my mouth when Cody Staman's laying there with his knee blown out. Now Jermaine Sterling's doing some goofy dance moves. Anyways, before that, Jeff Neal. It's spelled Geoff, but I heard it's Jeff. He's a dude from Texas, so I guess it's just Jeff. He might be from somewhere else originally, or maybe I'm getting him confused with the other guy. No, he's from the USA. Oh, the guy before him, Charles Byrd. Totally different weight class, and they don't look alike, so I shouldn't have gotten that confused. But I think he might originally be... No. Somebody on this card... Oh, I'm sorry. I think it's ARA. I think ARA is who I'm thinking of. We already talked about it. Anyways, Jeff Neal defeated Frank Camacho via head kick. I did not make a pick for this fight. Honestly, I probably should have just picked Jeff Neal. Frank Camacho gets hit a lot, but he's also really tough and hard to finish. Neal looks super great, but what I will say, this was my thought, okay, during the fight, is Neal looks awesome, but isn't Frank Camacho kind of the perfect opponent for him to look awesome against? You know, just think about that for a second. If you're a striker who likes to pick people off and play a little bit of a distance game, isn't someone who's just going to stand right in front of you and who's way slower than you and has a shorter reach than you, isn't that kind of a perfect opponent? So my point is, let's not get too excited. Jeff Neal looked great, but, you know, Joe Rogan, and of course he's a hype man. That's what he's there to do. So Joe Rogan's also doing his job. But, you know, he's like, oh, we have a new contender. Calm down. This was his first fight in the UFC. And he beat Frank Camacho, who's a perfect style matchup for him. Calm down. That doesn't mean he's a contender now in one of the most stacked divisions in the UFC. Like, Jeff Neal is not going to do that to Tyron Woodley. He's not going to do that to Darren Till. He's not going to do that to Stephen Thompson. Like, calm down, okay? Let's let the guy build a little bit. He looked great. Beautiful high kick KO. I looked over at my wife, and this after Frank had gotten rocked, and he like screamed at him, and they keep going. I said, "Man, Frank is so tough, but one more of those left high kicks, and this thing's over." And bam, right out of nowhere, one more big high kick, and that thing was over. All right. Before that, a middleweight fight. And I didn't pick this fight, and I also said I didn't really care about this fight, and I also said I didn't even know if it was at middleweight or light heavyweight. And I stand by that statement. Darren Stewart took out Charles Byrd with a TKO at 2 minutes and 17 seconds of round two. To be honest, this isn't super meaningful to me. Darren Stewart's already lost several fights in the UFC. I don't think he's going to be like a major contender. He's pretty one-dimensional. And honestly, I thought Charles Byrd was winning this fight, but then he just got way too complacent. He was being very mindful of feinting and then throwing, making sure that he was keeping Darren Stewart uncomfortable. Here's part of what people don't understand. If you put two strikers in an MMA cage and one of them's a much better striker, but the other one is an okay striker and knows how to wrestle, it really, really evens the scoreboard, because the good striker is having to worry about the threat of being taken down. If these two guys had fought in just a kickboxing match, Darren Stewart would not have been getting lit up for the first round. Okay, so that's the thing about this. Darren Stewart's also having to worry about the clinch and takedowns. Charles Byrd, like I said, he looked great, but then he got incredibly complacent and really, in my opinion, just kind of let his guard down. And that's what happens. He got hurt with an elbow that went right around his guard, hit him in the left side of the head. Mouthpiece came out, scrambling along the fence, kept getting hit, and eventually got finished with another big elbow over the top. I hope he didn't take too much, damage to the mouth. I know that, when the mouth guard comes out, the ref can't just say pause and hand you your mouth guard back. He has to wait for a break in the action, and there wasn't a break in the action. But, getting hit without a mouth guard in always makes me nervous for guys, because, you don't want to see a guy, really get his teeth messed up or anything. So hopefully he's fine. I didn't hear anything bad through the news or anything, so I'm sure he's good. Before that, I picked Craig White to beat Diego Sanchez in the first round by KO TKO. I didn't know that Craig White didn't know what wrestling was. You see, I figured that with him being an MMA fighter, he probably at least had heard the word wrestling. I figured maybe he had at least seen a YouTube video of what wrestling is. But apparently, if you ask Craig White what wrestling is, he thinks that it's like the WWE or something. I don't think he knows what a collegiate high school Olympic wrestling is. I really don't. Because he literally can't defend a takedown from someone who's half his size. Diego Sanchez is a good wrestler, but he's not a phenomenal wrestler. He's just not. He's relentless and he's tough. But the reason why I picked Craig White, and I'd make that pick again probably, every time they were on the feet, which was only for about 10 seconds of every round, because as I said, Craig White doesn't know what wrestling shoes are. Like he literally, if he sees them, he doesn't recognize them. He's like, what are those shoes for? What are those for? He doesn't know because he literally can't wrestle to save his life. I was yelling at the TV during this fight. I was so mad because I was so confident in this pick, and it definitely was the right pick. Every time they were on the feet for all of 10 seconds, Diego Sanchez almost died. I'm not even kidding. He literally almost got killed like 2 times in this fight by single strike. He caught a knee and then just fell into a takedown, and Craig White just tipped over. Like, no resistance. Craig White was not even trying to get back to his feet. He was, it was one of the most frustrating fights. I will never pick Craig White to win a fight again unless he's fighting another British dude who doesn't know how to wrestle. That was such a frustrating pick for me. I was so confident in that, and every time they were on the feet, it was very clear that Craig White could literally kill Diego Sanchez if he could just stop one takedown and hit him one more time. He was hurting Diego every time he touched him. Diego is not durable anymore. But Diego's tough and relentless, and if you're tough and relentless and you go for takedowns and the person like helps you, you know how like when you pick someone up, it's easier to pick them up if they help you pick them up. Like they kind of give you some support. If I'm trying to carry a child, if I'm trying to carry someone like a baby, like a person, or like you're trying to fireman carry someone, they can help you lift them up. They can kind of grab your shoulder and push up on that and then try and disperse their weight well. And then if someone just lays there like a sack of potatoes, they're going to feel a lot heavier. And, it's like Craig White was literally helping Diego Sanchez take him down, it felt like. Like he wouldn't even try. Like you saw how John Dodson, when Jimmy Rivera picked him up, he laced Jimmy Rivera's leg to keep himself from getting tipped sideways and kept his base trying to get back to the ground. Craig White didn't do any of that. He just would lift his legs up off the ground for Diego and pull guard as he's getting taken. I was so mad. This fight made me so frustrated. I really don't want to talk about it anymore. Good for Diego Sanchez. Literally almost died every time they were on the feet for 10 seconds. But whatever. He won 30-27 times 3. Good for Diego. I'm happy for him. But Craig White, good Lord, dude. If you you got to learn how to wrestle if you're going to be in the UFC. That's, in my opinion, that was just ridiculous, seeing him getting taken down that easily over and over and not even trying to get to his feet. It was ridiculous to me. Before that, Jim Miller. I did not make a pick in Jim Miller versus Alex White. I wish I had, because I was going to pick Miller. I was probably going to pick him by decision. I think I hinted at that. But then I kind of chickened out and said I wouldn't pick this because I don't really know how Jim Miller's doing. They actually talked on the broadcast about his Lyme disease and stuff, which I think I mentioned on my preview show. But that's a well-known fact amongst MMA fans. That's really messed up his career a decent bit. But I should have made the pick. Alex White is just not an elite fighter. I don't mean that in a mean way, but he's just not. He got hurt badly by Jim Miller, kind of a club and sub rear naked choke. Miller hurt him, followed up, was able to get the neck. Good win for Jim Miller. Super happy for him. He's a great guy. Alex White, like I said, he's just not a super elite fighter. He's not. I mean, he's got a place in the UFC. That we need all people in the world. If everyone in the UFC is a Conor McGregor, then there would never be any fights because they would all cost too much money to pay to fight, and none of them would want to fight each other. So we need different people. We need someone who's just going to be like, whatever, I'll fight that guy. Oh, you want to send me to this? You want to send me to go fight in Nebraska? Sure. You want to send me to go fight in your first show in you want to send me to fight on the yearly show we do in some part of Eastern Europe that, we've never been to yet. Sure, I'll do it. You need those people. So, not everyone's going to be a huge superstar or super great undefeated fighter, so Alex White definitely has his place in the UFC, and he's definitely a good fighter. I just don't think he's an elite fighter. And I think Jim Miller, the fact that he hung in there and didn't get finished by Francisco Trinaldo, Dustin Poirier, Anthony Pettis, I think that shows you that to really beat Jim Miller, you have to be elite. He's still at that point where to really beat him, you have to be elite. I think that Dan Hooker is pretty elite. I think that Dan Hooker is a great fighter. I think he's really going to surprise some people when he takes on Edson Barboza, and he might even get that win. So, for me, Dan Hooker is elite. That's why he beat Jim Miller. Alex White is not elite, and that's why he lost to Jim Miller. All right, so before that, there were two fights that I did not watch. I heard Irene Aldana versus Lucia Pudilova was a great fight. I was halfway listening to these fights. I was driving, so I was just playing Fight Pass and listening to the commentary. Irene Aldana won that fight by split decision, and from what it sounded like to me based on the commentary, I agree with that. And Jared Brooks, it sounded to me like he should have won a unanimous decision. I did miss the first round, so maybe I missed something big there, but I thought he should have won a unanimous decision just based on watching those last two rounds, or listening to them at least. But yeah, Jared Brooks won. All right, so yeah, these fights were great. I'll be back on here. Not really sure. Let's look at the schedule real quick before I get off here. Let's see what we got coming up. Obviously, we've got Conor Khabib coming up October, I think it's 6th. Let's see. Okay, so we got a couple fight nights. Probably won't do shows for either one of these. I might do something for Bellator 206, Mousasi versus McDonald. And then, of course, we've got the big one, Conor versus Khabib on October 6th. I'll definitely do my preview show for that the Sunday before that. So, yeah, we'll be back. I'm going to try and get the wife on here. We got a second microphone. So I'm going to try and get the wife on here to do some stuff with me. I don't think she wants to do her first one being a big show like the Conor Khabib preview. So maybe I'll try and do something for one of these smaller fights, or just kind of like I did for what was the fight where I did just kind of a one fight thing, Alexander Volkanovski and Darren Elkins. I might do one like that if there's just one fight that catches my eye on one of these next two fight nights. But yeah, I gotta go, so I'm gonna get out of here. These were great fights. Hope everyone enjoyed them. I'll be back. Until then, catch you later.